We also have a hearing conservation program, or we're trying to get that developed on campus. But a lot of industries that are exposed to noise, high noise, have to have an occupational noise prevention program. Where it used to be, we had a real good one going. We had everybody tested every year to make sure they weren't losing their hearing. And we identified noisy operations so we could make sure people wore their ear protection and wouldn't lose their hearing. Think about these for a minute. Have you walk across campus from one class to the other and listen to music on your iPhone, iPad, whatever pad you got? Okay? How would you feel if you couldn't hear that music? Wouldn't be too pleasant? Is that the vibe I'm getting from you? Okay. What if you couldn't hear the birds? Or the cicadas? Take that away. What if you couldn't hear your instructors talking? Maybe you might not want to, okay? But they couldn't get their point across to you if you can't hear what they're saying. What about not being able to hear a train? What kind of impact could that have on you? Probably a negative impact. Okay. And this is not something you recover from. Hearing loss is a gradual progression sort of thing. You might, if you go out and cut the grass like some of you say you do, you might have felt sort of like you had earmuffs on when you got through, but a day or so later you're back to normal. Imagine if it doesn't come back to normal. It's not going to come back to normal. And everybody loses their hearing as they get older. How many of you have older grandparents, aunts and uncles, parents whose hearing is a little bit not what it used to be? We've been trying to get my father-in-law to wear hearing aids for 5 years. It's an ego thing. Hearing loss is an ego thing. But it won't come back once you lose it. Let me ask you a question. Don't everybody jump at once and answer the question. If a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? I'm getting some of this, I'm getting some, huh? What's he talking about? White shirt. What's your name?
Molly.
Molly. If a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? Why does it make a sound? How do you know that?
It's hitting other things.
Well, when something moves and strikes something, it creates a pressure wave that we call a sound. Did you hear something? That's because when I did this, it set up a little pressure wave and everybody's ears picked it up. Okay? If we agree that when a tree falls in the forest, it makes a sound, let me ask you another question based on that agreement. If a tree falls in the forest, does it make a noise? Does it make a noise? Okay, to answer that question, you probably need to know the definition of noise. And for most purposes, noise is unwanted sound. So if you're on a construction site and you hear somebody cutting wood or using a diamond saw to cut concrete, they're making a sound, correct? Everybody agree with that? Is that a pleasant sound? I think that would fall in the heading of noise. If somebody cranks the radio or an iPad or whatever up too loud, does it stop becoming sound and become noise? So keep that little distinction in mind. Sound is just a pressure wave. That's just the physics. Noise is the perception. If I can stand this far from this young lady and talk like this and have an intelligent conversation, then we're not exceeding any kind of noise limits. If I had to sit up here and shout to overcome extra noise, then it's a safe bet that I've exceeded the standards for noise exposure. Rule of thumb, 3 feet, have to shout to be heard. Then you probably need ear protection. And on construction sites, it's a pretty good bet you'll need ear protection. How many of you have seen this before? Biology class, high school biology, university biology, that sort of thing. Same old stuff you've seen before. Again, sound is a pressure wave. It's just a physics thing. Y'all probably had to take physics, right? Dilbert's good for occupational health presentations. You might have heard the term decibels, dB. Okay, that's how we measure sound. It's a logarithmic sort of thing. I'm not going to the math. If you want to learn the math about sound, that's a different topic for a different day. But that's what it's generally measured in. Would you say this is an example of unwanted sound? Probably. Have you ever used a staple gun, an air-powered staple pneumatic? You know, it makes a pretty sharp sound. Any of y'all into shooting, hunting? Okay, same sort of thing. Acute, short bursts of noise. The other type is where you hear the steady rumble, steady constant noise all the time. I had a grandmother who used to work in a weaving mill that made labels, like the labels in the back of your shirt. She worked in there for probably 40 years, no ear protection. Back in the 50s and 60s, it wasn't a concern. She was pretty much deaf by the time she hit 80, because she wasn't wearing ear protection. Two basic types of ear protection: plugs and muffs. Most people can wear both. I've seen one person in 35 years who could not wear a pair of earplugs because his ear canals were so small. You know, middle-aged person. That was interesting. So the only thing we could do is put him in earmuffs, protect his hearing. Generally, earmuffs are a lot better protection because they're bigger, bulkier, thicker than earplugs. Sometimes you have to wear both depending on the level of the noise. Here again, that little rule of thumb: if you have to speak loud, raise your voice at 3 feet, you're in a hearing protection zone. I'm duplicating myself. One of these Saturday afternoons, I'd like to have some of the student interns we get to work for us this fall take some noise equipment and just stand in the stadium and measure the noise levels at various points during a football game. I would imagine when Georgia scores, the noise will be probably the highest. If Tennessee or Alabama scores, the noise will probably be the lowest, depending on how many people from Alabama or Tennessee show up. Okay. Anybody riding motorcycles? Any motorcycle riders? Okay. Chainsaws fall in about this range. Weed eaters, weed trimmers, same sort of range. So if you're managing the grounds crew, that's something you'd be concerned with. Just a couple more examples. Welding might surprise you, but welding can be kind of a noisy operation. Depending on what type of welding it is, what kind of metal one's using in the welding process, where they're doing it. Any question about noise? Like I said, I'm trying to give you a quick overview of sorts of things. Be aware of that 3-foot rule of thumb.